attacks against journalists in Gaza Strip. With us here today is the chair of the European Parliament's Delegation for Relations with Palestine, Mr. Manu Pineda, in the center. Then we have Mr. Anthony Bélanger, Secretary General of the International Federation of Journalists. Next. Left to Mr. Pineda, and Mr. Nasser Abu Bakr. He is the president of the trade union Palestine Journalists Syndicate. Mr. Pineda, actually all three guests are going to give their introductory remarks first, and after that you will be able to ask questions. So I would give the floor first to the chair of the European Parliament's Delegation for Relations with Palestine. Mr. Pineda, you have the floor. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who's here, both in person and online. Hello to everybody, and I'd like to thank our guests. It's 2 months tomorrow since the beginning of the Israeli aggression against Gaza that's already left an unimaginable number of victims, because there's nothing to compare what the Gazan people are suffering to. And we're seeing how the Israeli regime, far from following international law and admitting that they're making mistakes, are denying what's happening. Attacks against journalists, doctors, humanitarian workers, even UN workers. Instead of being protected as mandated by international humanitarian law, the Geneva Convention, the Treaty of Rome, far from being protected, what we have seen is that they have become targets. The number of journalists that have been killed. My colleague Abu Bakr will give you the latest information, but I think in the Gaza Strip this is 65 plus another 3 in the south of Lebanon. We will work to make sure that there is no impunity here, to make sure that the perpetrators of these crimes will be brought to justice. And we will support any initiative that will try to bring the perpetrators of these crimes before the International Criminal Court. So without further ado, I will give the floor to the President of the International Federation of Journalists. Thank you very much, Mr. Pineda. For this press conference, I'm going to speak French. Thank you for being here. It's difficult for us as the International Federation of Journalists. We represent 600,000 journalists around the world. 10 days ago, I was in Palestine. I've often been to the occupied territories, and from a personal point of view, this was the worst mission that I took part in. I wasn't able to go to Gaza because, as you know, it's an open-air prison. You can't go in. From an open-air prison, it's become a mass grave. The vice president of the International Federation, as well as being the president of the Palestinian Journalists Federation, we visited a lot of publishers and news outlets. We met journalists, the families of journalists, people who'd been injured, had limbs amputated. And as journalists, we didn't choose this job to wage war and to be shot at and to be killed, and that's the most difficult thing. And when we decide to become journalists, as most of you, it is to fulfill a mission, an important mission towards the citizens of our country, or beyond that if we write for an international news outlet. We are seeing unprecedented attacks. And there's nothing we can do about this. The International Federation of Journalists represents journalists in the UN. I am in contact with the UN every week, and even the UN here is powerless. All you need to do is listen to the communications here. They are trying to get equipment into Gaza for our journalist friends there, but even through Egypt, but this isn't having any success. They're trying to get foreign journalists into the Gaza Strip, but this isn't working. In Rafah, there's a lock with 3 keys, one with Hamas, one with Egypt, and one with Israel. And in order for the lock of Rafah to be opened, the 3 keys need to be here, and unfortunately we're missing the Israeli key because they're refusing. We want our journalist colleagues to be able to carry out their work, to report on what's happening on the ground, but unfortunately they've been blocked from doing this. We have some Palestinian journalists, that's all we have on the ground to share videos that you're seeing on TV, on the internet. So this was just to remind the European community, the global community, the international community, that when we met journalists in Ramallah, they said that the Western media, the Western governments aren't doing anything, they're not listening to us. And Sir Abu Bakr and I are here to ask, what are you doing? What are you saying? We are welcomed by Mr. Pineda, who is very up to date on what's happening in Palestine. And now it's time to act. This is a message to our journalist colleagues. He's unable to go between Ramallah and Amman because it's not possible to pass through Tel Aviv, but he was able, fortunately, to get here. So thank you once again, Mr. Pineda, for this press conference.
Mr. Manu, thank you, Anthony, and thank you for all my colleagues here, our colleagues in EU. I would like to explain our situation in Palestinian territories, specific in Gaza Strip. What they are suffering, it is hard suffering for them. They are under bombarding. They are under comprehensive war. It is comprehensive war against journalism, against freedom of expression, freedom of media, against human rights, against humanity, against journalists, against everybody in Gaza. So far, they killed more than 75 journalists and media workers in Gaza Strip, and more than 140 they were injured, and they are demolished 65 outlets, offices in Gaza. They are demolished 22 local radios in Gaza. They killed more than 300 from the families of journalists in Gaza, and also we have more than 1,200 journalists displaced. They are sheltering in the schools and in the yards of hospital in Gaza in very hard situation, without electricity, without internet, without communication, under bombarding, and they lost their families, and they are still telling the international society the truth. They didn't do any propaganda. They tell the truth by by publishing videos, photographers, and newsletters daily about the situation in Gaza. They are facing genocide daily, minute by minute in Gaza, and also they are facing a big propaganda war from the Israeli government and Israeli regime and Israeli society. I would like to give you some important numbers. There is official number that 1 million hate speech in the Israeli society. It is in X platform. Hamla Center documented it in Haifa. It is in the fifth day of the war. And also the Israeli media, they are incitement against the journalists, incitement against the people to kill them as they are terrorists and must be killed, all the Palestinians in Gaza. So also the international media, we ask them and we call them to tell the truth and to tell the justice for the international society. We are daily under the bombarding and killing of our colleagues, and now our journalists, they order them or apologize them to move from the south of Gaza to the north of Gaza in Khan Yunis. They collect them, all of them in Khan Yunis, more than 1,200. And now from yesterday, they try to apologize them to move to Rafah under the bombarding and in very bad situation, very hard situation. Many of them killed yesterday, and we don't know what happened for them when they collect them in Rafah in one area. Maybe they were doing massacre against them for all of them. I'm here to tell our colleagues and the MPs here in the EU the truth and to fasting their move very fast to the ICC and to sign also a letter for ICC to fasting their investigation. I met with Mr. Karim Khani from ICC before 5 days in Ramallah. I asked him and I call him to fasting his procedures and very soon to beginning and to at least declare that we are began the investigation about the case of journalists. We are as PGS, Palestinian Journalists Syndicate, and IFJ, International Federation of Journalists, we delivered 2 complaints before last year in 2022, and so far Mr. Karim Khan, he didn't do anything. Now we are took decision last week as executive committee, the leadership of IFJ to go to the ICC the 3rd time. We need from all of you, journalists and MPs and all the international society to move and to pressure with us. The ICC, it is the last option for us to respect the international law, to implement the international law, to implement the principles of the international law, and very, very soon to accounting and the killers of and the journalists. And we hope this visit for us as delegation from IFJ and BGS will move you to faster your procedures and acting very soon. Thank you for all of you. And any question you want, I'm ready to explain for you. Thank you.
Well, this was Mr. Abu Bakr, the president of the trade union Palestinian Journalists Syndicate. Thank you all for your introductions, and now we can start with your questions. Please tell us your name and the media you're representing, and who do you want to reply to you. For those who are connecting via internet, you just press raise hand button and we will open the microphone for you when your turn is on. So please, the colleague over there.
Turkish Anadolu Agency, Selen Valente. So my question is to Mr. Pineda. I would like to hear your opinion about this. I mean, can Israel hide the massacre in Gaza by killing journalists? Because I want to mention that my own colleague working for Anadolu, Muntasser Estawaf, yes, was himself killed 5 days ago in Gaza in an Israeli bombing. He lost all his family, and after that, still he was going on working for us, for Anadolu, and finally himself was killed. So what is this strategy? Can Israel hide the massacre in Gaza by killing the journalists? Thank you.
Yo creo que lo está intentando.
I think Israel is trying, I think. Israel, like any other criminal, wants no witnesses to its crimes. And this precisely brings them to consider as a priority objective to kill off the journalists. 65 journalists killed in Gaza is a significant number. They've even killed journalists' families as punishment, because it wasn't enough to kill the journalists, they had to kill off their families. I saw it firsthand. Recently I went and they authorized a press conference right in front of the occupied territories with a map of Israel. And while we were there, 2 journalists of Al-Majidin were killed. Right after they interviewed me. We believe that the problem is not so much that Israel is killing journalists, but it's doing it with the complicity of the international community's silence. We have to oblige our governments and the European institutions to side with international law, with the UN, and most particularly with peace. The only way we have right now is popular mobilization, protests. You have some leaders such as Macron, such as the UK PM, who unconditionally support Israel. So they said originally, and now they're having to change tack. But from words, they have to be made to act and really show that they respect international law.
Thank you. We can go for another question. Yes, please. But this is a press conference. You can ask your question after the conference.
Olivier Beau from AFP.
Olivier.
Clarification on the number of journalists, Mr. Abu Bakr, you mentioned, still working in Gaza. Are they 1,200? Is that what you said? And I guess they are all Palestinian.
What do you say?
I guess they are all Palestinian. Yes. There are no foreigner whatsoever.
Sorry to say for you, all of you, they are all of them Palestinians journalists. Israel forbidden any international journalist to enter Gaza. We need and we call all the international society to pressure Israel government to allow for international journalists to enter Gaza to see the truth and to telling the people the truth, because it is very important to us for 2 things. They said the Palestinians journalists, they are not telling the truth. We are hope and we are calling all the international society to pressure Israel to enter all the international journalists to Gaza. And the second thing that Israel forbidden the journalists, the international journalists to Gaza, because they are thinking there, if they are present to Gaza with their colleagues, it will be protection their journalists. So they need the Palestinian journalists alone to target them and to continue their systematic killing for our journalists. So that I'm warning the Israeli army and Israeli government planning to implement big massacre against our journalists. So that please, now it is the moment to move very soon and to pressure very soon to protect our journalists.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions from the journalists in the room? No? And online?
Thank
I
you,
don't see.
No,
Manu.
sí, la señora se quería hacer
Yes,
una pregunta.
that's okay because we still have.
The lady had a question, right?
Yes, you can.
First of all, I'm not representing any media agency. Je présente aucune agence. Mais en fait,
I don't represent any media agency, but I have a question for the Federation of Journalists. I was so saddened in reading the French press. I am Palestinian, but I live in Geneva. I work for an international organization, but I am here in a personal position. And I was shocked that French media weren't even denouncing the abuses of freedom of the press. They keep saying the war between Hamas and Israel, but we know that there are over 250,000 Palestinians killed in the territories, not just in Gaza. How do you know? How do you think we can really improve media so that they really tell the facts of what is happening without these biases? Because for us, it's a very important difference what the French journalists do. Thank you for your question. The International Federation is not a media federation, but it's journalists. So we represent journalists, be they employed by newspapers or media outlets or freelancers. You're right. As Nasser Abu Nakr was saying, Israel has prohibited international journalists from entering Gaza to put a muzzle on them. Because before we intervened, there was a sort of source issue. You use one single source and you communicate on that, and that goes for both sides. But in this case, you even do propaganda by using a single source. And so we've talked to a lot of colleagues around the world. It's not just in France, because journalists in the UK, in the US, fell into this trap. And then we have to remain journalists. We have to abide by our professional code. We published around the 17th or 20th of October a charter. We republished it. We all respect it. It's an international federation of journalists charter that is imposed on every journalist around the world to avoid this sort of problem. The large media outlets actually apologized and tried to correct their journalist behavior, but it's not enough. We have to put some firewalls and safeguards. And I've been in touch with the federations, with large press agencies, and they all told me that they were going to put in place safeguards to avoid this problem. I'm usually quite critical about my colleagues' work, but some of them are doing a great job. Even in France, there are some files being published that are very precise, very technical, very detailed, and a lot have requested to be in touch with Palestinian journalists to get the other side of the picture?
I will finish, but I will say it is comprehensive war against all Palestinian journalists in all Palestinian territories, in West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem. In East Jerusalem and West Bank, we documented at least 200 attacks and crimes against our journalists. You can image the situation. They are cutting the roads by checkpoints, and the settlers and the army whom they are attacking our journalists in West Bank and East Jerusalem. And also inside Israel, whom covering the war, the Palestinians journalists, they are attacking them, and we are documented these attacks daily. It's continuous. Now, so far, at least 400 attacks and crimes in all West Bank and East Jerusalem, except the families, except the sheltering, except the families of the journalists and their offices. We are collect and documented 400. It is each single thing. It's documented by what time, whom attacked them, what happened. All the details we have. It's documented in West Bank and East Jerusalem and Gaza. So all of us, we are under fire. We are under bombarding without a very important movement and big pressure very soon to stop this war, to stop these escalations against our journalists. They will continue their attacks, their war crimes against our journalists. Please help us very soon. We need your help and we need your solidarity. We need your movement very soon. And the ICC must be pressure them to take their action, and we need the justice for our journalists. Thank you all for all of you.
Well, thank you everyone for your questions. Thank you,
Muchas gracias a todos.
Mr. Pineda.